Man, I'm not feeling this. Let me go suit up. Alright, now we're talking. This video comes in two parts, the first part being specifically all about my thoughts on writing female characters. So in the last few weeks I've come up with this idea that there are three ways to write women in literature or whatever. The first way is the weak female character, and I don't mean weak like they're not physically strong or they're not emotionally strong or they're not socially strong, because those are just character traits. I mean weak in that as characters they do not stand up on their own. Either they are based mostly around stereotypes, or they exist only to serve other points of the plot and they don't actually exist as their own individual people, or their existence is more like the girlfriend or the damsel than, an actual human being. Generally, this is frowned upon because it is not very good writing, especially if this character is like one of your main characters. The second way of writing is the way that I used to do it, but it never seemed quite right, and that is the womans. The womans. The boy girls. The men women. I haven't thought of a very good name for this one yet. This is where you either want to write a strong female character, or you want to write your female characters on the same level that you write your male characters. Because male characters are just the default for some reason. I don't know, it's no one's fault. Society just sort of morphed that way, and now, The way that I, and I assume many other people, misguidedly do this is by writing your female characters the same exact way that you write your male characters, and they just happen to also be female. But this has never seemed like quite the right approach, and I figured out why. The reason is because unless you are specifically writing a story where culturally females and males are viewed as the exact same thing, people are not going to treat female characters like male characters in general. They may treat them with the same level of respect that they show male characters. People do not think of men and women in the same way. But even just physically speaking, ladies got the vagina going on and men got the penis going on. So unless that changes, there will always be something, even if it's really small, that divides the two sexes from each other. So the third way to write female characters, which took me way too long to figure out, is the way that I think works the best and feels the most honest, is a bit of a two-part process. First, you have your female characters. The trick there is to write them complexly. No one thinks of themselves as strictly their gender, I don't think. I'm sure there are girls that associate themselves with girlness and it makes up a large chunk of their identity, but whenever someone thinks of themselves, they're not just going to think, I am a girl. When I think of myself, I think I am creative, I have pinkish hair, I've got glasses because I can't see very well, a cat in my lap. All these things that go into making any character, regardless of gender, and that, builds up a character's identity as a person. The second part here is to take note of how other people view that character. Because while we imagine ourselves complexly, our first instinct when we look at other people is probably going to be to note their gender, and then their ethnicity. And then maybe like what they're wearing and try and make judgments about them from that. But gender is usually the very first thing that people notice. I think that the most interesting and realistic female characters are the ones that have female moments. And the way that the world around them treats these female characters is, I think, part of what makes these female characters so interesting. I think that a written culture or society that acknowledges the difference between males and females, regardless of whether or not it's acknowledged as a good, bad, neutral, whatever thing, is interesting, and it leads to depth in characters and character relationships. So all in all, in conclusion, there's one thing I want you to get from this. I think it's that you should imagine characters complexly, and that it's okay to admit that female characters are girls. It's fine to take note of that. It's fine to reflect that in their personalities. Bringing up parts of a character's personality that are normally associated with lady stuff is totally cool, and it can add complexity to the other people around them and the way that they view them, and it can add complexity to the society and the culture that your character is living in, and it can also show what kind of a girl your character is. How does she react to this stuff? How does she take it? Does she take it? Does it matter to her? You can totally be operating on the same level as male characters while still being female. You just can't ignore that your female characters are female characters, if that makes sense, I think. Part 2 of today's video, I want to show you the stuff that I accomplished. This is my notebook where I write stuff about my story. That's where I started. Okay, this is my tiny handwriting. This pink, I use a different color every day because I'm weird like that. And this pink is where I started at the beginning of this week. And then I wrote this. 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 And then, how many pages did I actually write? I should probably, anyway, it's gonna stop soon, I think. And then no, blank page. So I feel freaking accomplished.